Right, hi guys, welcome back to the Moaning Yorkshireman and welcome back to the Elite Racing League Championship on F1 2020. We are at China this time, and as you can see, qualifying is over. I have finished in P6. You'll note there's no change or mix of strategies this time around. China, a hard-wearing circuit, but we've all got on softs, and that's because it's going to be wet for the start of the race, and not just for the start, but for the entirety of it. So we're going to have an exciting race ahead of us as we're jumping in now, ready for the 5 lights to go out. P6, a great qualifying there by Dustin in the Renault. We've got Brenda ahead of us in the Red Bull. We've got his teammate Matt behind us in P7, and it's away we go. We're in rich mix, the overtake button enabled straight away. This is crucial. The first couple of laps we need to gain places if we can. That's Dustin running wide in the Renault. That puts us into P5. We've got Brent and Nick battling ahead, the Red Bull and Racing Point. We're going to try and sneak up the inside of Nick if we can. Nick on the outside line, which is faster on exit. He's still there, look, but we're having a good run. Oh, bit of oversteer there, and we nearly touched Nick. That was really, really close. But we're round the outside of him now. As we finish Sector 1, about to start Sector 2, round the outside. Is that going to work? We've got someone lunging up our inside. I think that's Dustin, but the corner arrow calms down. Dustin backs out of it. We stay in P5. We've gained 1 place from our starting position. Nick and Brent battling ahead again now. So as soon as Nick's finished with us, he's straight on to Brent again, wanting to get past that Red Bull, but we're not going to let him have it easily if we can avoid it. We're going to try and go up the inside of Nick here, are we? Well, he's trying to go around the outside of Brent, so I see a gap. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to go for it. Over the grass, over the curb. That was so close to contact. Nick there, just as I flash back and look behind me, Nick gets onto the curb running wide and then nearly loses it. He was lucky not to spin there, and we're still side by side. I'm round the outside this time now, and we do bang wheels. It had to happen at some point. We've been racing so close this entire lap so far, and Nick has just got the purchase on us going down the incredibly long straight. I've got the overtake button enabled, still in rich mix as well. I'm trying to gain this position as possible, get the toe. No DRS, of course, because it's wet, and of course it's the start of the race. You don't get DRS for 3 laps in dry conditions anyway, but unfortunately I've run out of overtake. I've been too keen on it, so I couldn't get the measure on Nick on that first lap, unfortunately. Too keen on the overtake button has cost me there. I could have lunged it up the inside. I'm cutting the first corner already. The first warning for exceeding track limits. If I do that 2 more times, I'm getting a time penalty. But at the moment it's line astern. I've gained 1 place at the first corner. I've battled with Nick for plenty of laps, but sadly at this moment in time it just looks like Nick has got the measure of us as we go around this corner. I love this turn. There's so many different lines to it. You can take multiple lines. You know, some are faster, some are slower, but overall they all balance out in their own weird sort of way, and it's a really cool sector, Sector 1 of China. Really enjoy it. But P5 for now, and it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to advance anymore on Nick, but most importantly we've got to look out for Dustin behind as well. So we jump into lap 5 now. Unfortunately, Nick and Brent ahead have gapped us, but we've gapped Dustin behind. We've got green flags flashing, we've got yellow flags flashing, and there you go. That's Nick up the inside of Brent. He's pushing Brent a little bit wide there. Brent trying to come back on him. Can this mean that we have a chance to capitalise? And sadly, no. They've swapped positions, but they've kept their position ahead of us, and they've kept their pace going as well. So, yeah, not too bad. They had a good race ahead, but sadly I couldn't keep in touch with them. Now this is the lap I am kicking myself about. Lap 13. I'm thinking, shall I pit and try and go for the undercut on Brent? And I thought, I'm not too sure. I don't think anyone else is going to pit, so I decide, no, I'm not going to bother. I run a little bit wide for good measure. That wasn't obviously trying to gain time. I lost time there. Actually, I outbraked myself. That was the indecision as such of whether I was going in or not. Missed my braking point, and there you go. Joe and Nick have pitted. Nick with the fastest lap at the moment as well. It must be said he's doing a really good job now. He's got past Brent, and that means that we're in P3 at the moment, but we're going to have to pit, and we're pitting this lap, and that's the same time as Brent, and we have guaranteed ourselves that when we both pit and we both come out the pits, providing Brent doesn't need a wing, we're going to come out behind him still, because we're just copying what he's doing. We should have really gone for the undercut there. I think the undercut wasn't too powerful, but I think it'd have been powerful enough to certainly make it interesting on pit lane exit for Brent. But sadly, you know, the tyre wear, I was unsure how wet it was going to get towards the end of the race. It was wet for the entirety of the wet race, but I didn't know if it was going to dry up, whether it wasn't going to dry. I didn't really know, to be honest, so I decided to pit lap 14, slap bang in the middle of the race, and get some fresh rubbers on now, and we do get out ahead. A good pit stop there actually, but we get out behind Brent, I should say there. And we'd rejoin in P6 for now. Brent out ahead of us. Dave, the only non-stopper at the moment. So once Dave stops, it will be back to business as usual, and we will be in P5. But there you go. Just P5 at the moment. We've got a nice cushion to the cars behind. They've all stopped now. Like I said, once Dave pits, we'll be back into P5. But let's see if we can make any inroads on Brent. And as you can see, we're jumping right to the end of the race. Sadly for me, it was an incredibly boring race after that pit stop. I didn't get any more chance to catch up on Brent. Brent checked out up ahead. We'd actually gone the wrong way on setup, the pair of us. I'd gone for setup 2 with the wet conditions, so had Brent, and we found out that later Nick had gone for setup 4, I believe, which is mainly for a dry setup, so that's why we're struggling in the early few laps. But then once we put a dry line on the track, it meant that the setup 4 was good because the tyres had enough grip to get round and he was able to control it. So me and Brent made a mistake there with setup, and that's why we kind of was lonely in our own positions really. Brent was just a little bit quicker this race than me to be able to gap me out by a few seconds, but not a lot. But we were totally left behind against the cars ahead. But we checked out ahead. Look, we got an 18-second gap over Dustin behind, and Dave, his teammate, has caught up to him as well. But yeah, all in all, I think, you know, P5 still a solid result. It wasn't the most exciting race for me. Intermediate conditions normally tend to spread the field out a little bit, just with quality of driving, and there's not really a mix of strategy either. You can't go soft to mediums, mediums to soft, and have people charging through. You're just on inters for the entirety of the race, so it takes that strategic element out of the race as well. But you know, nonetheless, a good race, a solid result, and Nick actually wins the race in the end. That's how quick he was. We said he got the fastest lap at the pit stops, and his setup worked incredibly well, and he thoroughly deserved the win. He'd driven so well. Brent did really good, in fact, to hold him up for the number of laps he did. The first 5 laps he held him up for, but then once Nick had got past Brent, he was away and gone. But we're going to cross the line, and it's going to be P5. It's going to be 10 more points on the board, so it's a solid result. As you can see, I was trying to go for fastest lap, or set my own personal fastest lap at the line, but sadly I just ran out of fuel at the end there and went into low fuel mode. But nonetheless, P5 confirmation there. We crossed the line with P5. Overall, happy with that. We can be happy with that, and Nick is driver of the day, and rightfully so. Well done, Nick. That was a cracking drive. It was good to battle with you for the first lap, and a 1-2. Look at that, a 1-2 for the racing point. So let's have a look at the grid order now, but before we do that, it's time for the champagne, of course. Nick giving it a spray over his teammate there, and over Otmar Safnauer, the racing point boss. There he goes, that's Dom pouring it down Nick's neck. Oh, it's all getting a bit feisty at the podium celebrations there. Sadly, we're not on it this race, but, you know, a good race ahead. So it was Nick from Dom, from Joseph, from Brent, from myself, and my teammate finished in 8th. So we will see you all again next week for round 7. It's coming around quick, isn't it? So we'll see you all then. Thanks a lot for watching, guys, and much love!